good evening, and welcome back to our second episode of Make Mine Movies with myself, Sinead, and my lovely co-host.
He is the very wonderful. He is the very brilliant. He is the not currently in the same room as Sinead. He is the lovely Bref. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Bref, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Sinead. How are you, my lovely quarantine arena?
So, for anyone that doesn't know, or if you are anywhere within the world, you know what's going on. But specifically in Ireland, measures have gotten a bit stricter. So, for the sake of both of our sets of fairly high risk parents, we've decided to part ways. So we're recording on the Tinterwebs.
We are indeed, and a big thank you to the noble people of Zencaster for their platform.
Hashtag not spawn.
Hashtag not sponsored, but I do know that it's run by like two people in a basement.
Oh, really?
So it's a really small platform, and I just think it's really cool. So I'm happy to give them a free plug.
Hey. So thanks very much for everybody that gave us good feedback on the last episode. We're very glad that you enjoyed it. A good few people reached out and said that they enjoyed it. So thanks very much,
Which
guys.
was really nice, and we really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, because obviously we didn't want to necessarily completely leave you with nothing, but obviously this is obviously very different to what myself and Kate normally do. But we're glad that you are enjoying it anyways.
Yes, and I'm not Kate.
No, you're not Kate, but we will hear from Kate later in the episode, so that's good.
Yes, we will.
So we had put out a poll on the Mickey Waffles Instagram on Sunday, asking whether people wanted us to watch 101 Dalmatians, the original one from the 60s, or the Aristocats. And sadly, this week, I lost.
Indeed you did, and the universe has been restored to at least some variety of balance, because 101 Dalmatians, which was my pick, won that poll. What did it do, Sinead?
It won.
It won the poll, that's right. How much did it win the poll by, do we remember?
I can check.
Let's have a look on the internet.
It won 59%, so not too much of a win.
Not too much, but I will take it. 59% is a C+. I am taking that result.
So that was the original plan for this episode. However, then life and the world happened. So we actually haven't had a chance to watch 101 Dalmatians, to be perfectly honest.
So we are going to delay that presumably till next week's episode. We're gonna give that a go.
Yes.
And then we'll pop up another poll after that to see what you guys want us to do the week after. But with this week, we wanted to talk about, first of all, we do have a movie we wanted to discuss. That's quite important.
Yep.
However, the big news that we wanted to start off with... Now, hang on a minute. Sinead.
Yes.
March 24th. What does that day mean to you?
Our anniversary.
It is our anniversary, but what else was it?
It's also Disney Plus Day!
Yay!
Well, Disney Plus Europe Day.
Disney Plus Europe Day. Disney Plus has finally launched in Europe, so of course we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, so I say Disney Plus Europe. I am aware that any of you that might be listening in France, and if you are, bonjour. But it did get delayed in France, so the French government requested that Disney Plus get pushed back until, I think, the first week of April, so it's getting pushed back a week and a half-ish.
Right.
Just to help with bandwidth, because obviously France is also in lockdown and are also expecting people to work from home, so they were a little apprehensive as to whether the internet could withstand Disney Plus having their launch as well, so that's been pushed back there. But for the lovely people in the UK, Ireland and most of mainland Europe, we got Disney Plus, and so far it's pretty great.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. It shares pretty much none of the problems that Disney Life had.
Yes,
because
agree.
Disney Life is a service. Now, granted, a lot of the catalog is understandably the same.
Yeah.
But Disney Life never really felt like a service that was particularly user friendly.
No, it was very clunky. Yes, you could have an app on your phone or your iPad or whatever, but the app was always a little meh, and it always kind of irked me that I couldn't I have a smart TV in my room, and it always kind of irked me that I couldn't get an app for it in my room, because I feel like I would have used it a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And mercifully, the app for Disney Plus is nearly everywhere that you can possibly try and get to, except for some older TVs, as we discovered.
Yeah.
But a big problem that I have with Disney Plus, the best thing I can relate it to is probably Windows 8. Bear with me on
Okay.
this comparison. Windows 8 was largely designed to be usable across both tablets and PCs and was just designed to be a clean, lots of blank space interface, right? And what they actually did was they
Okay.
simplified it so much they made it massively complicated. And that was my issue with Disney Life. It was not particularly intuitive to use. It took ages to load anything. The search function really didn't seem to work all that much. There were a lot of problems with it, and it kind of felt a bit like a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Disney Plus, however, is an entirely different story. It
Absolutely.
shares exactly the same interface code as the WWE Network. They use exactly the same platform. They use the same developers, same development company, and that is a really good a really good UI UX type situation for them. So that's all really really good. Disney Plus is a fantastic service, not only because of the number of things that we have access to in the back catalog, leaving aside, the classic movies or one or two of the shorts that were kind of peppered on Disney Life. Those are all there, but they've added so much more.
Yeah, there's so much on it. I woke up the morning that Disney Plus launched and kind of downloaded the app, set up some profiles, stuff like that, and started going through and adding stuff to my list. And I think in the space of like 3 minutes, I probably had like 20 things in there. Things that I'd maybe seen in the cinema and hadn't watched since and really wanted to, or some of the Disney Plus original content, various different things. But I ended up with this big, massive watch list that now I have plenty of time to go through.
Yes, which is very, very nice indeed. I have also downloaded Disney Plus
Very good.
onto most of my devices, but mostly onto my TV. And I haven't really added anything to the watch list yet because it's going to take me several hours to do,
Okay.
because there's so much stuff that's buried on there, be that primarily the old late 80s and 1990s cartoon series
Yeah.
that are on there. There are some they're like DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, Goof Troop, like any of these things. These are all things I really want to go back and watch, and we did to a certain extent.
Yeah, we watched, so we'll get more into stuff that we've watched on it in a little bit. But we were watching a little bit of Rescue Rangers the other day just whilst we were getting ready to go out and see the movie that we're going to talk about later. But it was just quite nice to have it on in the background, like those cartoons that you used to watch probably on the Den on a Saturday.
Yeah, it was just nice the fact that that they were also kind of unpacked from the literal Disney vault, because while you could get certain, like some of those series on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever it is, they've largely been out of print for a long time. Like
Yeah.
I remember very distinctly when I worked for HMV, you could always get the box set of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, but it was also always really prohibitively expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And that happened rather a lot with 1990s cartoons, where yes, you can get them, but you'll be paying through the nose to get them.
Hmm.
So the big one that I'll always look at is I cannot wait for the day that an Earthworm Jim box set comes out
Oh,
over
my
here.
God.
I cannot wait for that. You can get the Tick, which was the other one, but the Tick is about like €35 a season,
Right.
and it's absolutely not worth it. So at least with this, I have no problem paying for subscription sites if I like the content. With Disney Plus is a comparative bargain, even in compared to Disney Life, because it's cheaper.
Yeah. So Disney Life was 7.99 a month, euros,
It was.
obviously. So €7.99 a month. Not, I mean, compared to Netflix, it's not, I suppose, horrifically expensive. However, so I bought Disney Plus, sorry, about a month ago ish.
Yep, there thereabouts.
They had an initial launch offer of you could pay $59.99, and that would be your access to Disney Plus for a year. So you don't have to pay monthly. You get it cheaper. There was also the option to get it for $5.99 a month if you signed up in that initial one and wanted to do the monthly payments. But I kind of figured it's something that I'm definitely going to keep for the year anyways, regardless. So it just made sense to pay the 60 quid up front. If you want to get it now, so that was an introductory offer, which I think ran right up until March 23rd. And then if you got Disney Plus from the 24th onward, so anytime after that, it is either $6.99 a month or $69.99 for a year, which really I don't think is terrible.
It's still really, really good.
Yeah. So price wise, it's pretty much a bargain. Like I suppose what a lot of people kind of want to compare it to is Netflix, and I think they're very different. A lot of the reason why people want Netflix is for the Netflix original series and new things that go onto Netflix. It's not necessarily a back catalogue of things that will sit on Netflix, because something might be on Netflix one month and then could be gone the next. So I think Netflix is a very different kettle of fish. I think the main reason why a lot of people want Disney Plus is for that back catalogue of Disney movies and Disney TV shows and everything else in between. Yes, the original content is amazing, and everything that we've watched of the digital content is really, really good. Not the digital content, the new content. But I think what you're paying for is to have access to all of those like movies and shows and stuff that previously had sat in the Disney Vault.
with no eyes watching them, and that is something that is, in many ways, the existence of Disney Plus, kind of based off the Vault thing, is kind of amazing because ourselves, and much like I would imagine anybody listening to this now, we're kind of used to the feast or famine type deal with Disney, and still kind of think that that's how everything goes. So, for example, if you wanted to get one of the old animated classics on VHS tape, you better get it when it comes out because it's going to disappear very, very soon.
I remember having to explain the Disney Vault to people on literally a bi weekly basis when I was in Disney, because people would come in and be like, "Hi, I'm looking for Sleeping Beauty." And I'd be like, "Oh, that's not coming out for another 2 years." And they'd be like, "What?" Or, "I'm looking for Cinderella." Yeah, no, that won't be out for another 4 years. That was out about 3 years ago. And they're like, "What are you talking about?" Now, obviously, the Disney Vault was abolished before I even left Disney. So it was probably late 2014, mid 2015 ish, I think, when they got rid of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
about that.
it was still in place in the States up until Disney Plus launched in the States. Having to explain to people that no, sorry, you can't buy the DVD for this very particular, very quite popular movie because it's not going to be available for another 3 years was absolutely mind boggling to people.
Oh, I would say so. But the thing is, the second you start and step back and look at how Disney used to release their films before the home video market, and particularly how they used to re release them, it makes absolutely perfect sense. But mind you, if you're someone who's just coming in looking for this movie, you're just kind of going, why isn't
Yeah.
this available? This is an all time classic. But like, yes, it is, which is why we can afford to only sell it for 2 years every 7 years.
Yeah.
So that we can relaunch it and we can put it in a fancy new packet and we can do new artwork and we can throw on an extra 5 minutes worth of documentary footage
Yeah.
and we can kind of call it a new release. But the big advantage of doing that is it makes every one of those releases kind of special, much like the old re-releases they used to do in the cinema.
Yeah, absolutely. So, serious question here, Beth.
Yes.
Who did you pick for your profile?
Well, as it happens, I didn't pick my profile.
Uh, okay. So, when I downloaded it, set up profile. So, me and Breffney are sharing a Disney Plus account because there is no need for us both to have a Disney Plus account.
No.
And I based it off your Disney Life character, which is Wally.
Yes, I have not changed it. Now, would you like me to explain to the people why I chose Wally?
Sure.
Well, the reason why I chose Wally is pretty straightforward. I will make absolutely no excuses for the fact that I'm a massive Pixar fanboy, more than I would be a Disney fanboy overall. The other reason for Wally, if you want it, you can just look at my right arm. I have a very large Wally and Eve floating through space tattoo on my right forearm, and I absolutely adore it. And I believe at some point I may have pledged my entire arm to become a Pixar sleeve. I can't quite remember if I did that, but I'm fairly sure I did.
I think you did.
I think I probably did. So that was the first addition to that, and so far the only addition to that eventual sleeve. But I adore the character of Wally. When it came out, it was 2008, and I just started to get into film studies properly when I was doing my undergrad in college, so I would have been in second year at the time. And Wally was such a beautiful film for me, and I just loved what it could do, and that kind of opened out the whole world of animation, which I'd obviously been exposed to as a kid and everything like that. And loved Disney movies growing up and loved a lot of the Pixar stuff, but then did the typical teenage animation kid that everyone else does. And Ratatouille originally pulled me out of that line of thinking, but Wally solidified animation as absolutely magical for me. So I adore the character. One day I will have a working Wally robot. I don't know how I'm going to manage this, but I will. But for the time being, he's just going to have to make do with being my Disney Plus avatar.
Very good. Very
And
good.
who did you pick?
I picked probably the weirdest character that's on there. I picked Sparky
From
from
Frankenweenie.
Frankenweenie, which I don't think a lot of people will pick because Frankenweenie did not do very well. However, I have a massive soft spot for Frankenweenie and for particularly the character of Sparky. So when I joined Disney, like working for Disney, it was in October 2012 and Frankenweenie had just come out. We had a whole Frankenweenie window. There was all of this Frankenweenie merchandise. And it was the 1 year. So normally in the kind of latter half of the year, the kind of October into December period of time, the Disney store always has a pretty extensive Nightmare Before Christmas range. And it was the
Mm.
first year that they just didn't do Nightmare Before Christmas, but they did do Frankenweenie. So I own a load of Frankenweenie stuff. I have pajamas, I have the plush, I have this, I have a giant mug, I have a goo cup. I'll post a picture of the goo cup on the
You do
Instagram at
have a
some
Goo
stage
Cup, actually,
because
yeah.
it's a time. But and because I had when I first joined, I had Jack Skellington as the character on my badge. Whenever people would come in asking about the Nightmare Before Christmas or asking about Frankenweenie, they would just get sent to me because I was just the resident emo kid, which, in fairness, not wrong.
Sweetie,
Um,
you're still the resident emo kid.
this is very true. So yeah, I have such a massive soft spot for it. I loved the original short from the 80s of Frankenweenie. If you have the deluxe edition of The Nightmare Before Christmas on DVD, it's on there. The original Frankenweenie is also on Disney Plus. So if you haven't seen that, please do give it a watch. It is very sweet. But I love it. It mirrors the actual Frankenstein movie. And if anybody didn't know, I'm also a massive fan of the classic monster movies. Frankenstein is my favorite monster. So it kind of, yeah, I feel like it's the most accurate character to me. Also, they didn't have a Princess Leia, who would have been my other option to go for. And I'm like, here, lads, why have you not got Leia as an option in Star Wars? It's rude. It's rude.
In fairness, that is a pretty good question. I would have expected Leia to be a bit of a slam dunk to be one of those characters. But what
Yeah.
but what you have reminded me of is the fact that I'm really quite fond of Frankenweenie, and
It's so cute.
I think that there were so many issues kind of floating around, not the movie specifically. I think that that was the proper start of Tim Burton fatigue,
Yeah.
where everyone had quite enough of a Tim Burton film starring Helena Bonham Carter and presumably Johnny Depp in some variety.
Yeah.
I think Dark Shadows finally killed all of that.
Oh, God. Do you remember that movie? That was atrocious.
I paid to see that film,
So did I.
and I'm still waiting for my refund. That is one of the single worst films I have ever seen. Just a complete it every now and again with a director they will go too far down the line of believing that their own story is the only one they can tell,
Yes.
and that more specifically if they dare to tell a story a slightly different way that people are going to react negatively, so god forbid. Then there's also the thing that the studios are literally buying, oh, we're not buying Tim Burton as a director, we're buying that thing Tim Burton does,
That aesthetic.
for that aesthetic, that general feel, everything diegetic within the film, all of this stuff, it's all very particular. And they basically just went, oh, these always make a lot of money, but. And we ended up with Dark Shadows, which had so many things of the aesthetic, ironically enough, very right. So why was it such a boring film? But the good news is we won't talk any more about Dark Shadows because it's not a Disney property. But nonetheless, I really don't like it.
Yeah. But a fun, I know I like to throw in all the little tidbits, but a fun little fact about Frankenweenie is that it's the original movie, the original kind of movie pitch for that is what Tim Burton originally went to Disney with when he first wanted to work with them, and they turned him down. They said, absolutely not, this is too depressing, this doesn't sit with Disney, nah, not interested. And then years later, when he went back with The Nightmare Before Christmas, they were like, oh yeah, no, we like this. But they still, because he'd already made the short, that's how it's on the DVD and that's how they've remade it now since. But originally they were like, absolutely not, we don't want this.
And for that era, I can understand why.
Oh, yeah,
I
same.
I think the timing of Frankenweenie when it came out was both exactly right and very unfortunate
Yeah.
at the same time. It was just right movie, kind of right time, wrong a lot of other things. But nonetheless, I do think that as a result, it got unfairly overlooked.
Yeah.
And I think that people, if you haven't watched Frankenweenie, do yourself a favor, as Sinead suggests, watch the short and then watch the full length film. Watch the full length film after that.
Yeah. Because there's so many, especially if you're somebody that likes the classic monster movies or anything like that, there are so many little nods to the classic monsters and the original story of Frankenstein from back in the 20s. Like it's pays perfect homage to those kind of original classic films, and I love it. So, and I figured not a lot of people are probably going to pick Sparky, so I wanted to pick a little doggo.
So here's my next question for you.
Yes.
After you had finally decided on your profile and decided on my profile
Oh,
and the profiles of anyone else who was going to have access to that account perfectly normally under just profiles, all
yeah.
above board. After that, what was the very first thing that we watched on Disney Plus?
So I feel like we need to give a little bit of context to this. So we've already watched the Imagineering story in full, and we've
We
watched.
have
I don't think we finished the Mandalorian, so we
we
should probably
haven't
do
finished The Mandalorian,
that.
and truth be
We
told,
watch,
I think we need to probably start that all over again.
yeah, and be able to watch it without French subtitles. But anyways, so we had already watched, like, they were the two big things that I wanted to see on Disney Plus, was the Imagineering story, obviously big Parks fan, and then also the Mandalorian, again, big Star Wars fan. So we had already taken those; they were already done. We didn't need to worry about those. So the first thing we watched, and it was also the first thing that Jessie, who we mention an awful lot from Instagram, Jessie R. Doyle, I think it was also the first thing she watched, and it's this series of, I think it's called Pixar in Real Life or something
Yep,
like that. So
yep.
we watched the full. There's like 5 episodes.
Five very short little sort of snippet episodes.
Yeah, they're like little shorts. So we watched the 5 of those. So there's one on Inside Out, there's a Wally one, there's a Merida one, there's a Toy Story one, and there's also a Finding Dory one.
There is. And the sequence they're in is a little odd for
Yes.
my liking. But the very first one is Inside Out, which involves somewhere on, I'm assuming it's a park connected to a college campus in the US. And
I thought it was Central Park. I could be wrong.
was it Central Park? I really, it could very easily just
I don't
have
know.
been Central Park as well. But I think there were enough references to college within that segment
Okay.
that it could also be that. But either way, it's somewhere in the US, and with lots of trees. And
Mm-hmm.
the console from Inside Out, they have a version of it, and then there are seemingly two or more actors largely acting depending on what button is pressed by unsuspecting members of the public.
Yeah, so they're kind of doing like improv.
They are, and for my money, I would have had this probably as episode 4
Yeah.
rather than episode 1. The one I would have put first, unsurprisingly, is the Wally one.
The Wally one is super cute.
The Wally one is exceptionally cute. It's a very, very simple premise. There's a woman who stops passersby when she's standing beside, uh, uh, I guess, trash waiting for collection, and just says, "Hi, I've lost my wedding ring somewhere in here. I just need to go get something. Can you just make sure that the truck doesn't come or whatever it is?" Grant. And then out pops Wally out of a cardboard box with the missing wedding ring in his little handy fist thing.
Like
Claw. In his claw.
a full size, life size 2 scale Wally just pops out of nowhere.
Yep, and it's absolutely gorgeous. There's one the reactions to it are all very varied, but they're all great. There's one girl who just keeps on saying robot. She knows who Wally is because she says it at the end, but she just basically starts crying, and it's the loveliest thing.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Yeah, it was not what I would have expected to have as like the first, I guess, series that we completed on Disney Plus for it to be that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely worth a look, to be honest.
Yeah, it's quite fun. It won't take you long to watch at all. It would maybe take a half an hour.
Yeah, at best, I'd say.
It's pretty short, so but I would recommend it. It's very cute. The Merida one, the Brave Merida one, is great in premise, but
I'm gonna say
her
it's
accent is atrocious.
yeah, I'm gonna say it's brilliant, except for one thing that's awful, and
Yeah,
that's her accent.
yeah. She can't quite figure out if she's from Texas or Carlow, but she's absolutely not from Scotland.
She most definitely is not from Scotland, and I think it's possible that the actress they got to do it, first of all, needed to be a very skilled archer, so I'm going to
Hmm.
guess that was the first requirement. Also needed to
Yeah,
be either ginger or willing to wear a wig. Entirely fair enough. The accent thing, if someone could have maybe sent her a Billy Connolly tape or something beforehand to, figure out how her father spoke, then that would have been something. But it's
even
the
just
only thing that lets it down.
even just to watch a Billy Connolly tape. Love Billy Connolly.
Yeah.
What a man. So, what else have you watched on Disney Plus except besides the Pixar shorts and Rescue Rangers that we'd mentioned earlier?
We also watched One Day in Disney.
Yeah, which is fantastic. I had really wanted to watch this as well. This was another kind of high priority for me. And if anybody doesn't know the premise, it's weird because they have two options of how you watch it. You can either watch it as one solid, just over an hour long kind of documentary style thing, or you can also watch it in little snippets. So they've also broken it down into little mini episodes. And it's basically, it follows around different types of cast members from all different areas of the business. Bob Iger is in it an awful lot as well, and it shows everybody from animators to theatrical singers to people that work in the parks, people that help build things for the parks, Imagineers. It really goes well across the spectrum of a Disney cast member and who falls into that title.
It does, and it manages to do it in a very different way to, for example, the Imagineering story. Now, granted, that is its own entity, but my concern ahead of One Day in Disney was that it
Yeah,
was going to be largely about the same. But the way they've arranged it is a bit more like a catalogue show, and that suits it exceptionally well. And I think
yeah,
it's not on a par with the Imagineering story because that is obviously a much bigger production, very much a AAA original title for Disney Plus. One Day in Disney isn't that, but it's an extremely solid AA title, and I would recommend you absolutely go and watch it. It's lovely. It's very touching in some parts. Not quite as, a heartstringy pulley as the Imagineering story is, but it does have a couple of the same beats. So if you enjoyed that, absolutely check it out.
yeah, absolutely. I agree. Another thing that we watched only one episode of is The World According to Jeff Goldblum.
We did watch this. Now, here's the thing. In fact, no, both of us had no idea what this show was going to be.
Hadn't a breeze.
Hadn't a breeze. I deliberately looked up no trailers, no advanced reviews. I hadn't really even thought about this show for the last couple of months because I just kind of went, okay, that'll be on there. And it was there. We saw the first episode, which is on sneakers.
Yeah.
And we both kind of went,
Huh?
I have no idea what this is going to be, but let's go with it. And what it is Jeff Goldblum being Louis Theroux, and it's great.
Yeah, it's really, really good. There was a part of me that whilst watching that sneakers one, I was really hoping, because I don't know anything about the like sneakers obsession. Yes, I worked for a footwear company. I worked for Vans for a year and a half, nearly 2 years. That's about my extent of knowledge into that kind of side of thing. And Vans is very different to the like what seems to be primarily obsession with Nikes. I don't know. But I was really, really, I wish they had have got Jeff Goldblum to go to the Vans factory and just spend some time with Steve Van Doren, because Steve Van Doren, he's not the owner of Vans anymore, but he's kind of the face of Vans, shall we say. And he's this older man that is just living his best Vans life. He has cars that are in the shape of shoes, and he's just adorable. And I really wish him and Jeff Goldblum had have had a little chin wag, because that just would have been adorable.
That would have been exceptionally cool. But having said that, I think that maybe, especially with this being the first episode, I think that there's a lot to be said for the fact that Jeff Goldblum was speaking to a lot of people who, with a couple of exceptions, were very corporate, which is
Yeah,
not how you would ever describe Jeff Goldblum. So it
no,
helped sell Jeff Goldblum as someone able to do this kind of entertainment.
yeah,
Whereas if he'd gone up to, say, a Steve Van Doren, that would have been fantastic, but you would have had the same energies of two equally mental people kind of bouncing off each other.
true.
And that would have been great, but I do think for the first episode, it's probably better that, I'll be honest, one or two of the people, particularly in the Adidas section, were just the most dull, boring people I think I've come across.
Yeah,
But Jeff Goldblum makes up for everything, and he has the same sort of childlike wonderment about basically everything. And it's very, very charming. You always kind of assume, at least I do, with Jeff Goldblum, that a lot of that is kind of just a bit of a facade, that it's kind of overemphasized. It's clearly not. The guy is just clearly on his own planet, and we are privileged to get to visit it.
yeah. He's just a total goofball.
He's a complete goofball, but I tell you what, as far as subliminal advertising works, sweetie, what did I buy at the end of that show?
Oh yeah, you bought a pair of shoes.
I did buy a pair of shoes. I don't really have a particular need for a pair of shoes,
No, you
but I
just
just kind of,
threw out loads of shoes.
I literally did just throw out about 16 pairs of shoes, but I just kind of went, well, I need to make up for those ones. So I bought a pair of sneakers.
You're
Very different
ridiculous.
styles to the ones I normally buy, but they're a nice color. They're kind of like a teal turquoisey color.
Yeah. Jeff Goldblum, shoe influencer. Who knew?
So there you are. And there is something else that we watched at one point, or rather, more specifically, I watched.
Okay.
And that was, ladies and gentlemen, The Simpsons is also on Disney
Oh,
Plus.
yes. I forgot we watched that.
And considering that I was one of those guys who used to spend about 50 quid every single year whenever they brought out The Simpsons box sets of each season.
Did you used to
Yeah,
buy them?
yeah, I used to buy those.
Oh, wow.
And I sold them a number of years ago, but I did used to buy those every year when they came out. And it was kind of alright in the sense that you had, for the early seasons especially, on the DVDs was okay because you had rather a lot of choice, but not too much choice. So you just know, okay, right, so there's 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 episodes on this DVD. I'll pop this one in and we'll watch this one, whatever it is.
Okay.
With Disney Plus, you suddenly have every single Simpsons episode ever. And that's rather a lot to deal with for like the first time. Considering that, as I'm sure is the case for, I would say more so Irish people, particularly, except of course for America, but The Simpsons was a much bigger cultural deal in Ireland than you would perhaps expect if you're not from here.
Yeah.
And part of that was just because it was the one vaguely sort of kid orientated but adult show that was on at a reasonable, consistent hour. And you always knew when the new episodes were. You always knew it was a magical day when Sky started showing them every weekday at 7 p.m. Because you got to watch all the old back catalogue. So there was still a big thing about it. So my whole thing was, I'm looking at every single episode of The Simpsons. Which one do I watch first? And the one I eventually
Tough call.
settled on, absolutely, when the one that I settled on, which is not my favorite episode of all time, but it is up there, is Cape Fear from season 5, I think, which is the one with the houseboat and the Thompsons and Sideshow Bob and the Rakes and the HMS Pinafore bit at the end. It's so many consistent jokes. It just reminds you of how good The Simpsons was. Now, obviously, it's only a Disney property by default at this stage, rather than an original property, despite the best efforts with the short film that was shown ahead of
Onward. Don't get me
Onward.
started on that again.
That was just absolute weird, and that's more emblematic of current Simpsons, which is might as well have a different name. It's not the same show anymore. But it was extremely nice to have that on any sort of streaming service. But it's still mental that A, it did eventually show up on a streaming service, and B, it showed up on Disney when it did.
I know, it's weird.
It's so strange. The Simpsons are a Fox property. They're not a Disney property in anything except actual ownership. It's very, very weird. But nonetheless, it's really, really good to have a way to watch the good years of The Simpsons.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing I've kind of watched, and I decided to watch Black Panther last night.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, I was able to get an app for Disney Plus on my TV. So I have a feeling I will probably use it considerably more than I do most things, because a lot of times if I want something on in the background, I want something familiar on in the background that I might not necessarily pay full attention to. And a lot of times it's hard to find stuff like that on Netflix, especially because I am one of these people that more often than not, if I go to the cinema, I'm seeing something that falls under the Disney umbrella of companies that they own, to the point that we had to ban Breffney's friend from booking him tickets to Disney related movies because he kept stealing them to go see the new ones without me.
Shout out to my old film show co-host, the good Lord Aidan Duffy.
So, like, a lot of what is familiar to me, particularly newer movies, are Disney movies, and I will openly hold my hands up and say that. So because you don't really get that on Netflix, I honestly don't even really necessarily use my Netflix account a whole lot, other than to rewatch series more often than not that I've already watched before. So it's been quite nice. So I watched Black Panther last night. I think I've only seen it the once, besides obviously watching it last night, and I totally forgot how damn good a movie it is. It is amazing.
Oh, I definitely need to go back and watch that, and it's one of the things that I'm most excited about Disney Plus is just the access to all of the old Marvel stuff, because
Yeah.
if nothing else, most of them, with the exception of the Iron Man films, tend to maintain their value. They rarely kind of went on sale and things like that, and then by the
Yeah.
time DVDs kind of fell out of circulation, then they got tied up in exclusivity contracts with Sky or wherever it is in terms of where they actually showed up. It's very hard as a result to, unless you buy the DVDs or the Blu-rays, to actually watch these things again. And now all of a
Yeah.
sudden you just kind of go, we have however many years of the MCU to go back and watch. Like
Loads.
Black Panther, I remember at the time was absolutely fantastic, and I'm looking forward to going back and
So good.
seeing it.
It totally holds up as well, which is really really nice because I wasn't 100% sure. So the next one I want to watch is Captain Marvel because again, movie that we only ended up getting to see once.
Which I'm also
Um,
terrifically fond of. Captain Marvel's a lovely movie.
yeah, I loved Captain Marvel. I thought it was amazing. So I'm excited to watch that. So that's everything that I've watched on actual Disney Plus. As mentioned, we have watched the Imagineering story. Fully recommend it. That is likely to be my favorite thing on Disney Plus ever because I'm such a parks nerd. They are releasing it weekly, so week by week. So the first episode has been released now, which is around Walt opening up Disneyland and opening day, and you get to hear from all the Imagineers, and you get to hear from Bob Gurr, and he's just the cutest human. I love Bob Gurr. Bob Gurr is just my fave.
Bob Gurr was amazing. I had no idea who he was going in, and then afterwards I
Oh,
went,
he's
"Who's
so
this
cute.
bloke?"
He made me cry. Oh, bless him. I love him. What did you think of the Imagineering story? Because obviously you're not as much of a parks person.
No, I'm not as much of a parks person, but it's a really good documentary series. Now, it's very much designed to, much like any documentary, is designed to elicit a very specific response from everything that it kind of puts together, but it does it so well and so likably, that there's no way you can't enjoy the Imagineering story. It's much like if this would if like because there were a few of these kind of documentaries around, like the History Channel did one a number of years ago. I think they did one quite recently as well. Discovery's done it a few times, in terms of doing documentaries about the history of Disney and Disneyland, and the Disney parks in general. But all of them seem to look at the logistics rather than the magic, and the magic is kind of more the point. That
Yeah,
it just looks as,
absolutely.
oh, look at this big infrastructure project that they're trying to put together with absolutely no project managers, zero accountancy sign off, and blah. And that's not what the Imagineering story is. Instead, it's just reminding you of what the focal point is. Now, granted, there's some major Disney tinted glasses going on throughout this entire
Oh,
documentary.
absolutely.
100%. There's a fair few things that are so glossed over. It was a few coats of paint to go. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, overall, if you want an enjoyable documentary, of which there are loads on Disney Plus, it's a brilliant one to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously The Mandalorian has been plastered all over everywhere. I feel like everywhere I look at the minute there are ads for The Mandalorian, there are memes of Baby Yoda. So The Mandalorian is great and would highly recommend. And I'm really excited to properly be able to watch that again as well because we were finding it through non-reliable resources, shall we say.
Non-reliable resources, through channels that perhaps were not of completely non-nefarious origin. But nonetheless, my big thing with The Mandalorian is all of the copies we were able to find online, obviously, all of those were really bad resolution, and The Mandalorian is clearly a beautiful looking series, but
Yeah,
we haven't actually really got to see that aspect of it.
yeah,
The one thing that I do really like about The Mandalorian, at least from what we've seen so far, is that it seems like an older form of sci-fi storytelling. And this is coming from a guy who is not a huge sci-fi person in any way, shape, or form. But there's a lot to be said for the slower way of telling a story, that you can do these sort of singular stories even as part of a larger arc, so everything feels together, but that you don't need to be snapping your fingers at the audience every 3 seconds with an action beat to make them pay attention.
yeah.
The Mandalorian moves very slowly. It reminds me more to be honest, of Star Trek than it does Star Wars for the way it
Okay,
handles its story. Not in terms of the actual content of the story, obviously that's all Star Wars, but in terms of the pacing in particular and the
okay,
story layout, that feels far more like Star Trek to me.
okay,
Or more specifically, it feels a lot more like a much older, mostly lost form of storytelling, almost like a western, which is
okay.
ultimately what Star Wars is.
Yeah, true, true, true. So that's our overall initial thoughts of Disney Plus. We might kind of throw in some tidbits at the start of each of these episodes of things that we've watched or things that we've enjoyed in the past week on Disney Plus. So maybe that'll become a regular thing. And be sure to let us know on Instagram, what are you watching? What are you excited about? And let us know. I did also want to find out Kate's thoughts. So I've asked her to send over a little voice clip of what she's been watching, what she's been enjoying, and her overall first impressions of Disney Plus. So I shall pop that in here.
Hi guys, hope you're all keeping well. This is Kate here, voice messaging from my bedroom. As you all know, due to COVID-19, we are not currently recording together due to the fact that I don't leave my house and Sinead doesn't leave her house. So I've just going to record you guys a quick little voice note about my opinions on Disney Plus, because regardless of the world situation, we got to talk about it, don't we? So I'm just going to give a couple of opinions, a little few tips for you guys, and what I've personally enjoyed watching. So I actually stayed up for the release of Disney Plus. I didn't realize that it was coming out at 1 a.m. I thought it was coming out at midnight on the 24th, so I stayed up, realized it wasn't coming out till 1 a.m. and I was like, ugh. So went to go to sleep, but then it actually released at like half 12 or 20 past 12 or something. So I ended up setting it up then. I set up the account for myself, account for Ed, and then an account for my family, so that was fine. We set that up. The very first thing I watched was High School Musical, the musical, the series. I watched that at 1 a.m. on the 24th, and I really loved it. I really liked it. I'm very excited for the rest of the series to come out. The next day, I also watched the live action Lady and the Tramp, which I also thought was very good. I'm personally quite surprised that they put Lady and the Tramp live action on Disney Plus, but we're happy to put the live action Lion King into the cinema. I know that the live action Lion King had a lot more big names and was obviously produced and made first, but I personally much prefer the live action Lady and the Tramp. I highly suggest giving it a view. If you are a diehard Lady and the Tramp fan, note that there is a few differences within the live action, but I still think it's a pretty good film. What other things do I have here? There's a huge range of shows. Even when I log on now, I find myself being very much overwhelmed by Disney Plus and the plethora of options. One sad thing is that Frozen 2 isn't available until July 17th. We popped that up on our stories. That is most likely due to the fact that it is currently on the Sky Store here in the UK and Ireland, and that I'd say in about 2 months' time, depending on how well it's selling, they'll put it onto Sky Movies, and then you're pretty much guaranteed that July 16th it'll come off Sky Movies and then it'll be put onto Disney Plus. I've also been watching a lot of The Simpsons. It's amazing. Every single episode is up there apart from one. And I obviously definitely recommend you guys watching The Imagineering Story and The Mandalorian if you haven't yet. One thing you don't need to worry about is watching Stargirl. Not anyone's cup of tea, I don't think. I can't think of any category of person who would enjoy watching that movie. And I watch a lot of like wimpy crap for like tweens and stuff, and this was seriously not my bag. But yeah, just a little couple little pieces of advice for you guys. If you do have Disney Plus, there are loads of ways you can watch it in case you are stuck just watching on your laptop or on your phone. Obviously, you can download the app onto your phones or your tablets, and then you can also log in on your laptop. If you have a Chromecast, you can cast it to your Chromecast. If you have Sky Q, so that is the branch of Sky that has, so when you get the remote control, you can press the button and talk into the remote control. That's the Sky Q. If you go onto your main Sky Q page and scroll down into apps, there's one for Disney Plus next to the YouTube and the Netflix app. You do not need to buy Disney Plus with your Sky subscription. You can availed of the €60 subscription from Disney Plus and use the app just within Sky. All you have to do is log in with your email and your password for Sky Plus, or not Sky Plus, for Disney Plus, and it works a treat. You can also watch Sky Plus now. You can also watch Disney Plus on your PlayStation. There's also an app there, and I have a feeling there's an app on the Xbox as well. So yeah, guys, if you have a smart TV and your casting is not working straight to your TV, see if there is a Disney Plus app that you can download straight onto your TV. There are some Samsung TVs where you can cast straight to it, and some that you need to download an app for, but just make sure that you're looking at all of your options. And if you get stuck, make sure that you are just giving it a little bit of googly wiggly. Anyway, hope you guys are highly enjoying Disney Plus. Hope you're all staying safe and washing your hands. I am very much missing recording the podcast with Sinead, but I'm trying to keep as on it to Instagram as I possibly can. Depending on how bored I get in the next couple of weeks, expect some Funko Pop photo shoots to put up on the grid as I slowly get more and more crazy. But yeah, guys, miss you guys so much. Hope you're all keeping safe. Bye.
So, as we mentioned at the start of the episode, the plan was to watch 101 Dalmatians, do a similar review to what we did with Hercules last week.
Yes,
However, life got in the way and coronavirus got in the way.
it did.
So what we are going to do instead is talk about a little outing that we had on Tuesday. Do you want to tell the lovely folks what we did?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it just so happens that we, or more specifically, between the two of us, really, there is a rather large racecourse, Leopardstown Racecourse, and on one of the, I guess, the backup parking areas that they have for any of the big racing festivals. In the last couple of years, a group started up doing basically drive-in movies. So they have a pop-up LED screen that pops out of the top of a truck, and they will occasionally do drive-in movie screenings. And they started out of nowhere doing them again the second any form of limitation started coming in regarding the coronavirus. Because obviously all the movie theaters are closed at the minute. You can't go out and you can't really buy new DVDs to speak of unless it's like, from a supermarket or something like that. So the only real way of watching movies aside from Netflix, there's no real way to get the experience of anything. And more to the point, there's no real sort of social thing you can do at the minute. And it's driving so many people completely cracked. So what this is it's a social occasion where you never actually have to be anywhere physically close to anyone and you're entirely within your car. That is the perfect thing for right now. So as soon as we found out those were going on, we had a look and we found the first possible movie we could watch, which was Peppa Pig. And we opted not to watch that. Instead, we went for the second movie they were showing that day, which was
The Lion King.
Yay! We should say the 1994 version.
Oh yeah, no, I would not have been going to see the live action one. Not a hope.
Absolutely not. Have either of us watched that yet?
No. Kate watched it on the Instagram stories a couple of weeks ago and was
That's
asking
right, she
people their
did.
thoughts, and nobody seemed to be impressed. But anyways, if I don't know if they can still run now that further lockdowns have come into place. I have a feeling probably not. But if there are any of these around you, I would highly recommend going. We've been to it a couple of times. We've been twice to watch Hocus Pocus around Halloween. Shocker.
That was totally my idea.
And then obviously this time we went to go see The Lion King, but they do them around Christmas. They do them usually around bank holidays, so that I think they obviously rent out the car park for however long, and then show them. So normally it's around, I think it's anywhere around 30 to 33 euro for a car, so you can fill your boots with ever many people you can fit into your car, and that's for like a regular 5-seater. But when we got sent the email the other day being like, hey, these are still happening, they had I think it was like a 20% off voucher or 15% off or something like that. They had some amount of money off within the email. So it was just over 25 euro for the car for the two of us. So to me, being able to get out of the house for more than an hour was great. So I didn't care. I'd probably pay it.
No, absolutely. It was 100% worth the money, considering you're going to be paying that kind of money individually to go to the cinema anyway if you had the ability to do it. The difference being that I'm particularly happy that I changed my car very recently, because we had all the space.
Yeah, it was nice. We brought more snacks than any two people could ever consume in the length of time that a movie was on. We brought drinks. We were able to recline the chairs back. It was great. I loved it.
It was a great time. Absolutely loved it. And obviously the sound gets piped in through one of your radio frequencies. And it is pretty perfect sound, in all fairness to it.
Yeah, can't fault it. And you can sing away and you can talk through the movie and not be annoying other people other than whoever else is in your car.
So as a result, it's a pretty perfect social experience.
Yeah. And it was busy.
It was busy. Now, we got there, again, we had very little else to do. So we got there very, very early. I think we were about the 6th car, whatever it is. I think there were about 40 to 50 cars there in the end.
Yep. And when you think about the fact that it's a minimum of 25 euro per car.
That's not bad for what was... Exactly. That was not bad for what was clearly a movie that had been bought on iTunes and then played. They did a very good job.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not gonna... Obviously, we didn't bring our laptops and stuff and like take notes whilst watching it because 1, this was very last minute, and 2, it was our anniversary, so we wanted to just chill and enjoy the movie. So we're not going to do a full in-depth look at The Lion King because just haven't had the time, to be perfectly honest.
Well, that's part of it. And the other thing is that at some point it is most definitely going to show up as an option on one of the polls.
Oh, definitely. We will revisit it.
So we will revisit it in a lot more depth. But nonetheless, we did want to touch off it today.
Yeah, so we're going to cover the 4 things that we kind of said would be our usual topics that we'll try cover. So, animation, story, music, and kind of the cast slash characters. And then off the back of last week's episode, Samantha, her Instagram username is the.girl.in.the.castle. Sorry, I've definitely said that wrong, but either way.
Thank.you.
We tag her all the time on Instagram if you follow Mickey Waffles, so you'll see her there. But she suggested that maybe another thing that we could add in would be for each movie that we look at to create or think of something that could be brought into the parks that's different to stuff that might already exist. So it could be a snack, it could be a piece of merchandise, it could be a character meet and greet, a show, a ride, whatever it might be, and to maybe include that as an, I suppose, an item to tick off for each movie. So I thought it was a great idea, and it's a way of kind of bringing the parks back into having chats about movies. So we're going to do that from now on. So we're going to cover that off as well.
We are indeed. So what are we going to talk about first with this film?
I feel like The Lion King kind of falls into a similar trap is the wrong word, but a similar kind of like flow that Hercules does, where it starts with a bang and it starts with a song. So I feel like it's only right to start with music.
I agree 100%, and I do not see any way that anyone cannot give this film 5 stars out of 5 for its music.
It's that like first like punch into the circle of life. Like I guarantee you cannot find a soul on the earth that doesn't know that.
It's just such a, as you say, it's a punch in the chest. It's also a punch in the eardrum because you're not expecting that type of introduction to that world and everything that goes on within that opening sequence. It's probably the best overall opening sequence of any Disney film in terms of how everything kind of comes together. It sets up the narrative perfectly, silently, aside from the music. And Circle of Life is such a good song.
Oh, it's amazing. It's so good. And yeah, as you said, it sets the tone for the movie. And the voice, I don't know who sings it, I won't act like I do, but their voice is absolutely phenomenal. And anytime I've seen any version of The Circle of Life sang in either the stage version of The Lion King, when I saw that in the board gosh, or also the bit of that which is in Mickey and the Magician, both times when you see someone singing it live, it's again an absolute punch to the chest. It's amazing.
It is amazing. Even the Elton John version, which is a bit odd, but I still really like it.
Yeah, strange. So what's your favorite song within The Lion King?
This is going to come as a shock to absolutely no one. It's Be Prepared.
It's so good.
I am a sucker for a pantomime villain, and Scar is both a pantomime villain in that he's an extraordinarily camp character, as we'll probably talk about in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
He's also so incredibly evil.
Oh, yeah.
Like, irrefutably and reprehensibly evil. And Be Prepared is just such a good song. There is no way you can look at that and just go, that Scar's alright, isn't he? It's just so incredibly I adore this song. I absolutely adore it beyond anything else. At one point, a number of years ago, when I was on the sort of the fringes for a sort of a vague vaudeville type stage thing, I was supposed to be a supporting character for somebody else. And the big build-up was, or at least the big premise was, that I was supposed to be the big, tall, dumb, blonde friend. And that was going to go on as sort of an ongoing narrative across various different shows over the course of about a year. And then at some stage, there was going to be some problem with the instrument that was being used, and then they were going to run off the stage and just kind of go like, even the whole gimmick was that I was practicing ukulele the whole time and doing it very badly. And the only song I know, which I still vaguely do know, is Monster Mash on the ukulele. I can play nothing else, but I learned how to play that just for that joke. And eventually there was going to be a thing where my noble comedy partner would run off the stage and kind of leave me there for several minutes, and at which point I would just do the deer in the headlamps look, and then the plan was for me to throw the ukulele down and go into my own version of Be Prepared and drop the dumb kind of airhead act, and then pick it up at the end before he comes back in and everything goes back to normal. So the idea being is, I'm going to stab you in the back one day and you're going to really enjoy it. So I ended up writing an alternative version of Be Prepared. And my voice, as you might notice, is quite soft and quite high. I can do the growly, you won't get a sniff without me, but I can only ever do it once.
I can't
because
confirm.
it ruins my voice to do it. which is exactly what happened, funnily enough, to Jeremy Irons.
Yeah, and then the noble Jim Cummings ended up taking over.
He did, kind of as a last minute thing. And in fairness, Jeremy Irons is, when he's singing the song, or the parts that he sung anyway, he's doing the classic thing of, I'm going to speak some of the lyrics because I can't do anything else. He's going to do that. And it works for Scar because he's the bad guy. So you're just he's regaling you in a tale and he's giving you a bit of a plan. Whereas if Simba turned around and did that, you wouldn't be too pleased.
Yeah.
So it's the perfect song in terms of setting up what Scar's true intentions are. He's not just the pissed off uncle who's a bit surly at the fact he's missing out on the monarchy. It's a lot more than that, and it's just perfect. As a song, it's absolutely perfect.
I agree. It's a great villain song. It's the one thing that I kind of wish Hercules had. I wish Hades had a song, like his own song that he would sing. Because more often than not, the villain songs are always my fave. Gaston is a cracking song.
Yep.
Poor Unfortunate Souls, cracking song. This, great song. I think my favourite is I Just Can't Wait to Be King. Because it's just such a bop.
I adored that song growing up, especially.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was, obviously didn't care as much for Be Prepared because it was the bad guy song. I Just Can't Wait to Be King. I had a jumper that I wore for, I think, about 3 years, which was impressive as a kid. Which was literally just, that bit where Simba jumps into the plant with the fake mane?
Yeah.
It's that on like a red jumper with I Just Can't Wait to Be King all over it. I wore that every second day for about 3 years when I was growing up.
No, I love that song. It's so upbeat, it's so catchy. Like, that is a song that will get stuck in your head for quite a while.
And Zazu is pissed off throughout all of it.
So good. So good. I absolutely love it. So yeah, I think it's fair to say I think both of us would quite happily give 5 out of 5 for the music.
Oh, 100%. And that's not even getting to things like Hakuna Matata. It's not getting to He Lives in You. It's not even getting to any of the rest of it. It is just that good.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So what do you want to cover off next?
Shall we talk about the characters in the cast next?
Yeah.
Where do you want to start? We've already kind of touched off Scar, and we're going to go far more into detail in terms of the history of that character as well.
Yes.
But the one thing that I did want to point out about Scar was who was originally cast as Scar?
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry. And when you know that, all of a sudden the character of Scar and how he's written makes a lot more sense.
Big time.
It makes sense. Such a Tim Curry character.
Yeah, it makes sense why he's so, like, Scar is such a camp character. Like, he's very camp, he's very drag, he's fab. Love him. I think he's such a good villain.
He's absolutely great. I think Michelle Visage could do a cracking cosplay as Scar.
Oh yeah. Oh, I agree. Good call, sir.
The same amount of just raw vitriol and hatred. It's great. But as a character, Scar is fantastic. However, I think the best character throughout all of The Lion King is Mufasa.
Okay.
And the reason is because it's very hard for Disney, as we touched on a little bit in the Hercules episode last week, it's very hard to get the father character right and give him enough of a personality, because usually they're mostly side characters. Now, in the case of Mufasa, very sorry if this spoils it for everyone, he's not in the film for terrifically long. Now, very sorry to have, slightly...
Hashtag
spoiler alert over, or, ruined your childhood by reminding you of what happens to Mufasa.
No.
But Mufasa is in the unusual position where he needs to be established as very much a very well-respected king, a very caring husband, a very caring father, someone who is willing to kick ass if he needs to, but someone who is not afraid to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs to do all of this to the point where you care about his unfortunate passing and the entire launching point for the second and third acts of the film. They managed to do that with so few lines. You care so much about Mufasa. I think that the way the character is constructed is absolutely brilliant. I think his design is fantastic. His voice, though...
James Earl Jones, you could never, no one could ever be Mufasa other than James Earl Jones. I'm sorry, no one can do it.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. So I think he's probably the best character in it. He's not my favorite character, though.
Okay.
My favorite character is Zazu.
That's because you are Zazu.
I am essentially Zazu. Rowan Atkinson, so Mr. Bean, Blackadder, all of British comedy in the 80s and 90s. Perfect casting. The one credit I will give the semi-live action animated update of The Lion King credit for is casting John Oliver.
Yeah.
Because I think that's pretty dead on as well. Zazu, I adore as a character because weirdly, I grew up to be Zazu, but growing up, it just reminded me of my dad.
Well, don't know what to tell you, sweetie.
Yep, and now I am Zazu. Disney, where's my royalty check?
That's fair. I'm trying to think who my favorite character is. I love Timon and Pumbaa, and we didn't mention Hakuna Matata when we were talking about the music, but I think they are such good comic relief within this movie because there are so many poignant and really sad and heartbreaking moments in the movie, and what you want is some light comic relief. And I don't think, with the exception for potentially arguing for Pain and Panic, I think they are one of the absolute best Disney duos because they're just hilarious.
They really are. They are fantastic comedic fodder and also basically the backbone of every subsequent Lion King property that's followed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would probably say, I mean, at the end of the day, anyone that vaguely knows me, I'm a villains gal. I love villains. I love anti-heroes. I'm never really one to go for like the good guy in the movies or anything like that. So and it's a conversation that we had when we were watching the movie. And again, good that we were in a car because we weren't disturbing other people. I would argue that Scar is the most evil Disney villain.
And I would agree. I don't think it's any accident that obviously The Lion King shares a number of story hallmarks with Hamlet. Scar is a very Shakespearean villain.
Yeah.
But he has rather a lot of, if we're completely honest, Adolf Hitler in there.
Yeah, especially the scene in Be Prepared when they're marching.
When they're marching. There is rather a lot of parallels with the story. We won't go too much into that because that's going too far down a rabbit hole. But the parallels are very much there in terms of absolute power corrupting absolutely.
Yeah, like he's just horrific. Like he kills his brother in cold blood. He mentally abuses a child and tries to kill a child on numerous occasions. He's manipulative. He's just a horrific character in all of the best ways. So I would arguably say he's not my favorite villain by a long shot, but I definitely think he is the most evil of all Disney villains.
I would agree. I would agree completely. I think he's brilliantly written, wonderfully acted, but I've never heard anyone say their favorite Disney villain is Scar.
No, I think it's because he's so evil. Like there's with a lot of villains, there's a redeeming quality to them in some way, shape, or form. For example, we'll refer back to Hades. Like Hades is hilarious, and that's the redeeming quality of Hades that makes people like him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas there's not really a whole lot of redeeming features when it comes to Scar. Scar is just pure evil.
He is, and it's one that is very deep rooted, very deep seated, and also there's also the fact that a lot of Disney villains, if they're backed into a corner, very few of them will, do the whole hero thing and just big up and just go, right, come on, let's be having you. I think maybe the one exception to that might be to a large extent Gaston, actually. But Scar completely shrivels away when he knows he's beaten.
Yeah.
And that's kind of he's all grandstanding from this viewpoint of evil, but he will do anything to avoid getting his own hands dirty.
Yeah.
Unless that doesn't work, and then he's perfectly happy to do it. It is a very menacing character, obviously rooted completely in Shakespeare, but it's very hard to like Scar. It's very easy to love the performance of the character.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. So, what are you giving characters out of 5?
Oh, 5 stars.
Yeah, I have to say, I agree. I think everybody's great. I think Nala is also a great character, great, strong female character.
Yeah, Nala's really good.
Yeah, overall, I think it's great. I think all the characters are fun.
I would also call out Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed, the hyenas.
Yeah.
They're also great. The only character for me who would have... And Rafiki, who we haven't even mentioned once. Rafiki's great. There's... The only character for me who doesn't quite have enough to say is Sarabi.
Yeah.
And I do know that was expanded upon sort of in other mediums, but it would have maybe been nice to have a bit more of Sarabi. But nonetheless, still 5 stars for character across the board.
I agree. Okay, so we've covered off characters and music, which I think are probably the biggest parts to cover anyways. Unfortunately, we're going to have to kind of speed through the last few bits because I have to go on a different call, so I do apologize. So, very quickly, what are you giving story?
Story, it gets a 4.5.
Okay.
I do think that there are one or two bits which could have been tied up a little bit better. I think Sarabi is one of them, as I mentioned. The story is not completely derivative, but mostly built out of Hamlet with a number of different things kind of crossed off. I would have liked to have seen a few more strands going on other than what was there, but what is there is fantastic. For me, it's not quite 5 stars, but it's about as close as you can get.
Yeah, I agree. I would probably give it a 4.5 as well. I think there's a couple gaps in things, particularly near the end of the movie. It feels like we have a lot of time at the start of the movie and that kind of in-betweeny period when Simba's with Timon and Pumbaa, and then it just kind of feels like it like falls its way to the end, and there's a lot of things that aren't kind of wrapped up or resolved or whatever. So yeah, I think 4.5 is probably what I'll give it as well.
Yeah.
What are you going to give it for animation?
Animation, there's no way you can't give this a 5. Has very, not quite early, it's probably one of the earliest examples of a classically animated film that uses and integrates computer animation as often and pretty much as seamlessly as it does.
Yeah.
Primarily in the wildebeest scene and also in the opening scene for Circle of Life as well, for particular the birds flying over the savannah. The animation in that is beyond beautiful. The Lion King, which wasn't being made by the A team of Disney animators at the
Yeah.
time, because they were all working on Pocahontas, for a film that had a reduced budget and not quite as many resources as Pocahontas had, nor its quote unquote top tier animators. This, for my mind, looks a hell of a lot better than Pocahontas does. No disrespect to Pocahontas, it's a beautiful, beautiful film, especially the colors of the wind sequences. The Lion King is still, and I said this at the time we were watching it, it's a 26-year-old film. It still looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree. I'd probably also give it a 5. Like, I don't think you can fault it really. I think the animation is beautiful. I think there's not a lot of Disney movies that you would associate with the time they were released. However, The Lion King is very 90s. Like, there is a very firm 90s stamp on The Lion King in certain different aspects, particularly in the I Just Can't Wait to Be King. There's almost kind of like Saved by the Bell-esque patterns that get thrown into that particular sequence. So you can tell when this movie was released. You can tell it's a 90s movie, it's an early 90s movie at that, and I kind of love that because obviously I'm a 90s baby. That was the kind of period of time that I was kind of the prime age range for this. So yeah, I think it's great. I would also give it a 5.
Yeah, no, I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. Even the sequence where Simba and Nala in that song are jumping through the elephants,
Yeah, absolutely.
through their
It's so
legs.
very
That's a
90s.
very 90s sequence. But no, you're exactly right. But I
Yeah.
agree with you wholeheartedly. 5 stars.
So, last but not least, before we quickly wrap up, if you were to bring something new from the Lion Kings to the parks, what would you bring?
I am going to premiere a brand new dark ride in the Disney parks.
Okay.
It is called Zazu's Morning Report.
Oh, very good.
And this is based off a couple of different things. So first of all, yes, if you have certain DVD copies of The Lion King, you can get the bits they took out, which includes Zazu's song Morning Report, which I've heard, and I'm glad they took it out, because it doesn't actually add anything to the story. It's just kind of there. The song isn't all that good. And it's much funnier to hear Zazu just go, "It seems the leopards are in a bit of a spot," and various different puns like that in the background while Simba's learning to pounce. I would have Zazu's Morning Report, which is detailing everything he talks about there. So it's basically like one of the, I guess, probably close to the Hagrid ride in Universal to a certain extent.
We're going big.
Yeah. So something like that, except that you're on Zazu and you're kind of maybe a little bit like the Tron setup, where you're leaning forward and you're kind of like
You're
on
going
Zazu's
real big
back.
with this.
Yeah, I'm going really big with this. And you fly over and you basically have all of this immersive stuff where you see all of the things that he's speaking about. So you get to, run along with the leopards. You get to see all the different aspects of the kingdom. At some point, obviously, you end up in the elephant graveyard.
Yeah.
And you get kind of chased around by that, and then you end up circling around Pride Rock. I would go big on that, but I would give it a very innocuous name, Zazu's Morning Report.
Okay, fair. I'm going to go down the snack route.
Oh.
And I think it'd be quite fun if you could get, like, almost kind of like a little, like, lunchbox or something like that. And it'd be different, like, cakes and treats and sweets and stuff that look like
Grubs.
grubs and insects and all that kind of stuff. And it could even come on a, like, plate that was shaped like a leaf or something like that. And
That'd
you
be
just
great.
get all these different tasters, because it's such an iconic scene within the movie of when Simba's trying the grubs and stuff for the first time. So I think having that as kind of like almost like a little like tasting platter, and I think it's something that DLP could easily do, especially because they have the Lion King and Jungle Festival and they have 10 million treats associated with that.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be kind of fun.
The slimy but satisfying platter.
Exactly. Isn't that what everybody wants?
Perfect. Absolutely. I'd certainly give that a go.
Yeah, so sorry it was a kind of, not sorry, bit of a weird episode, but thanks very much for listening, guys. And tell us what your Lion King associated park item would be. Let us know at Mickey Waffles Pod or at Make Mine Movies on Instagram.
And on Twitter.
Although I'm never on Twitter, so you'd be just chatting to Brefty then.
You'll be chatting to me on the Twitter.
But yeah, thanks very much for listening, guys. If there are specific movies that you'd like to hear us do let us know. And we should be back next week with 101 Dalmatians.
We shall indeed. And again, our massive thanks for all of the nice messages we got and all the engagement from you guys. For me especially, that means rather a lot. So thank you so much. We really appreciate every single one of you.
Fab. Absolutely. So yeah, have a great week and wash your damn hands.
Wash your hands. Bye.
Bye.